Hello everybody, it's Budrich again, and this is a new episode of Let's Linux. I call this one, I have actually prepared the lolban, i3wm extreme resize mode. And today we're gonna talk about resizing windows and modes. Might sound boring, might sound like something that you know everything about. But as usual, I have spent unhealthy amount of time thinking about these things, and now I want to make a video about what a video about resizing and modes. Okay, this is the config file from the last Let's Linux video. I will copy here now from the commented out defaults. This is the resize mode thing. I copy that and I place it up here where we have the moving. Then I comment out these, no, not moving, resizing, I mean, sorry. Place it there, and then we comment out these resizers that we set last video, and I enable this mode, and I have to change the hotkey here because these are taken now by D menu, so let's put it here. But otherwise this is basically the default i3 settings for resizing. I will also delete these one, and just with all resizing focusing, it is two modes with both J key, L, and semicolon, and the arrow keys. So let's just keep the arrow keys here. I save this, I reload, and now if I hit mod control and R, I will launch the action for that key, and that is enter the mode resize. And the mode resize is defined here. So let's just do it. I have this window, this terminal active here. Mod control and R, and you can see here, if you have the default i3 bar, a little label will appear with the name of the mode. And when you are inside a mode, then all other key bindings are disabled, and only the key bindings inside the mode definition here is active. So we only got these 6 key bindings now, and as you can see, none of them have a modifier which is normal. So now if I only press left here, it will resize this window. It will shrink the width, and if I press right, it will grow the width, and the same up and down, same thing. And I don't need to press a modifier. And to exit the mode, I press return or escape here, and it will return to the default mode. So if I do that, there, now I am in default mode, and arrow keys works as normal. And this is actually not a bad modes are really good. First I thought they were annoying, mostly because it takes so much space in the config and stuff, and I thought this was the perfect way that I have here. You know, I focus with just the modifier and direction. If I hold shift modifier direction, I move, and control modifier direction, I resize. But sometimes a mode can be really good, but I don't think the default mode here really shows the power of either the mode or the resize command. Because look at this, I go into the mode again now. If we press left here, resize shrink width, what will happen is that it will move or shrink the width by moving the right edge of the window closer to the left. And yeah, same with up and down. I don't need to explain this. It's a bit different, I think, with the tile containers. So let's exit this mode, and then we can i3wm move to B, this will create a tiled container here. And if I hit enter resize mode here, if I shrink the width of this container now, it will of course shrink it, but in one way it will grow the other. Yeah, you get it. It's logical. And with tile containers, this is actually the desired behavior in my opinion. If you press left, you shrink it. If you press, and well, I would like to switch this. We get to this. But then this is accurate. But on floating, I exit the mode again here now. On floating containers, sometimes you want to shrink it from this side, but sometimes you want to shrink it like this. And it's very easy to grab the mouse, you know, to get the windows when you're resizing windows, because you don't have so much control, and it's hard to just shrinking. Of course, that's always shrinking from right to left. That's not like super obvious, at least for my brain. But I think I have came up with a good solution here that will give us the power to use a combination of these two. This is what I'm thinking. If a window is tiled, like the, well, you know, it's i3wm, so it's inside a tabbed container, but it's tiled. If we call the resize action on a tile window, we want this default shrink width or shrink height or grow height or grow width. But when we are on a floating window, then I think this is a better thing. If the window is floating, a window have 4 corners, right? And we have 4 directions. So let's say if I press left, then I select this corner. And then I go into a mode for that corner, and then I can think about it as moving the corner instead of resizing. So I can select any corner, and it's like the same thing as doing this, but with the keyboard. Do you follow? Do you understand what I want to do here? And we can use the same hotkeys, like control left, that's if it's tiled, then shrink width. But if it's floating, select the top left corner and go into top left corner mode, and then move that corner inside a mode. And it was very easy to do this with my i3 scripts. There's one function or one script that's called i3get, and with that you can just pass this rf, and then you will get the floating state of a window. Here it says user on. If I run it here, rf, and R stands for return, and F is the desired return output. And here you can see user off. It's because this is not floating, because that's what we're requesting with the F. And here it is floating, and then that's called user on. It can be called auto on. It depends a bit about if you have loaded a layout and stuff. And I have made it like this to output what i3 gets me with this i3 get. It's also possible to get the information with i3 list, but it's a bit more complicated. So let's stick with the i3 get for now, and it's also, I think i3 get is actually a little bit faster. And by using this command, we can easily know if a script is floating or if it is tiled. And when we get that information, then we can do the desired action. So in this video, I'm going to create a very small, simple script so we know the action or the state of the window. And depending on the state, it will do different things, different i3 actions. So I don't know where we should start. Maybe we should start by let's start with creating a script. And now I will not go into too much details here about scripting. I do most of my scripting in Bash, and there are different things to say about that, but I will just say that I do it in Bash, and I will do that today. Because Bash is a default shell that probably most of you have installed, at least if you run Linux. Let's call this i3 is floating, or let's call it size mode. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we call this. And the first thing you should do when you create a script is to create a what's called Shebang. I think it's called, at least. Bash. Save it. Let's see if it. Yeah. The correct syntax was applied. A Shebang really shortly here. This is how Linux or Unix systems know that the file you're creating is a script file. If you put the hash mark like this, first a hash, then a bang or an exclamation point, and then the path to a binary, then what Unix will do when you launch when you open this file is that it will open the file with this binary. So it's kind of like the equivalent to having a file name. You could also name it, I will not go into that, but you can also do complicated stuff here, like passing command line parameters to the bash command and run the script with those. We'll not go into any details. We can save, or we can create a simple hello world. I save this now, i3 size mode, and then we can browse it here in our terminal. I saved it in bin, which is where I put most of my scripts, and I can do a ls, or we can do ls long i3 size mode. And here we can see the script. So if I run this now, i3 size mode, and we are in the bin folder. If I run this command here, nothing happens, because well, first, now it's in my bin folder. For you it might even say something different, but my bin folder is in my path. So it will always try to launch everything in the bin folder in whichever folder I am. If it's not in your path, you might even have to do this. Dot, it means the current working directory. You have to specify the absolute path to run a script if it's not in your path. But it says here permission denied, and we can see here the permissions of the file. This is not set to be an executable file. So we could either do this, we could type bash i3 size mode. This might work. Yeah, that worked. And then it will type, but this is tedious to always write bash to tell it to run bash, and then this is kind of unnecessary. And you actually, I could remove this, and then I could run it with bash i3 size mode. But we could also set the permission for this script file to be executable, and you do that by chmod plus x, and then there are other ways to set the permissions. I really recommend you reading up on it, and I should do that myself too. We do that, and now if I list it here, now we can see there are some x's added to the permissions, and x, when it is a file, it means that it is executable. So now I can run the script with i3 size mode. Just wanted to make like this short so you can get going if you know nothing about scripts. I know this was a bit of a scripting for dummies thing. But when you get this hello world by just typing the command, then you know that it is in your path and it is executable. What we want this script to do is take different actions depending on the floating state of the currently active window. And I have already showed you that command, so if we put this command here now, it should say floating off when I run this, or user off. And then we know it. So if the output of this command ends in off, then it's tiled. If it ends in on, then it's floating. And now we will, if you know nothing about bash or anything, this might just look super weird, but stay with me. Let's see if this works. It's tiled, it says, and that's right. Let's break this down. If else, you should be familiar with this. You must have seen it somewhere. It's a classic programming thing. You basically ask a question. If this is true, then do this. If this isn't true, or if this is true, do this, else do this. And in Bash, this is a chapter on its own. These things and these things. It's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't know how much detail, but basically we run this command inside a subshell here, which is what this is doing, and that means that we will get either user on or user off here, return, and then this guy here, that means make a regular expression comparison of that string, and this is the regex, which means if the word ends with on, the $sign here, it means that if the word or the string that is returned from this command ends with on, then this expression here, or this is actually a test. I should call this a test. If the output here ends with on, this test is true. And if that is true, then it does this. If this is false, then it does this. So that is what this script does. We will get back here soon. But now we have made like the, and it will not be many more lines, maybe 2 more lines here, but this is the blueprint for our script. Okay, so we said that we have 4 windows, 4 directions, and each corner will need to have its own mode now. So we have to create 4 different modes for this experiment here to work. And let's just copy this. Two, 3, 4 modes. And we can call this one top left. And we can call this top right. We can call this bottom left. And we can call this bottom right. Okay, now we have 4 different modes. And let's comment this guy out. We will not need it anymore. I could even delete it and open these guys again. And remember, these were the default actions that we wanted to take on the windows. These are the action we want to take if the window is tiled. But if it's floating, we want to do different things. So we could, I will copy this. I will just copy this, and then we can paste it in here because we will need it inside here later. And then just comment that out. We could also, this is what we will do if it's floating. We will go into different modes. I just came up with a thing now. I will make the script a bit more advanced, but whatever. Okay. We delete these lines. This. So when I press super control direction left, we want to launch our script, and then we have to put in exe, which if you have watched my previous videos, you know that's a alias or a variable containing the exec command and no startup ID flag and stuff. And then we just put in here i3 size mode. And there are different ways to do this now. I think the easiest way here, even if it is a bit complicated, but it's better than either we do this way or we have to create 4 different scripts, one for each direction here. It's better to have one script, and then we can pass a parameter here, like left, because this is direction left, and then we can use the same script but with different arguments: down, up, right. Okay, so now if I press this, it will run this command. Nothing will happen now because all the script does is it echoes, it prints this string here, and that doesn't have any function. What we wanted to do is let's focus on the left here first. Left. I will get into detail why I've chosen the way. Left should either shrink the width, or it should activate the mode top left. And here we have it. If it's floating, then it should activate the mode. And that is, now we have to put in i3 message also, mode, and let's just put top left here now. We will make this dynamic soon. If it's not floating, we want to use this i3 message resize shrink width. Okay, so now I save this and I save this, and let's reload this config. If I open a floater here now, since we made it like this hard coded, oops, I don't, whoa, sorry for that. When we have made it like this hard-coded, or it doesn't matter now, the argument here, it will always activate mode top left if it's floating, and it will always shrink. So if I press mod control and left now, it should shrink this, or it should go into the top left mode. That didn't work. I know. Yeah, now I'm pressing left, I'm pressing right. I don't know why my key display thing isn't... Sorry. Okay, now the key. So now I press mode control left direction, which I have set to H. And you see, it went into the top left mode, and now I can resize it with the arrow buttons. If I press escape, we're out. If I press mod control and right now, it will also shrink it to the left, like, no, it will go into the top left since it's floating. And I can do that again. If we activate a tile window, mod control left, it shrinks that window, and mod control R also shrinks, and mod control up also shrinks, you know, because it's the same. It's not dynamic, but it still works now. If it's tiled, it doesn't go into the mode, it does this, otherwise it enters this mode. So now let's modify the mode. So we resize the corner, or move the corner instead, because you can the resize command is actually quite powerful in i3. So the top left corner, when we press left with the top left corner, in the top left corner mode, we want to move this edge to the left. And then instead of shrink width, we put in grow left. And that means it will grow, it will expand the left side. If we press down with the top left corner here, we want to move the top border of the window downwards, meaning resize shrink up. I think you follow here, right? And if we press up, we want to move it upwards, and then it's of course grow up instead. Grow up, man. Yeah, maybe it's time for me to grow up and stop with this. But I don't think I will ever grow out of this tinkering with window manipulation things. And then we have right, and we're still at the. So we never manipulate the right border here when we are at the top left. And now we want to shrink left instead. Shrink left. And I think I will move this so we have a left and right and down and up together like this. Can even separate them like that. Okay, reload the config. I activate this and we press mod control and left. We enter top left mode, you can see that there. If I move this now left, you see it expands the left border. If I move it to the right, and if I move it upwards, it is like if the top right corner, if we're moving the top right corner now. Excellent. So now we just have to make modes for all the corners here, and that might sound cumbersome, but I think you get it. Left and right, then you don't have, you just switch left. Yeah, you get it. Here we have left and right, and on the top right, instead of you get it. I will just do it here instead of explaining it. It will take too much time. Alright, we can copy this down to the bottom right, because here it is this instead. Go down, shrink down, and then we can copy this. Whoops. Put it to the bottom left, and here again we grow left and shrink left. Okay, now all the modes are different. Now we just have to make adjust our script here to take in this these direction arguments, so we can make it more dynamic. Yeah. Bash has a great little helper thing here that's called case. We should do this. We're not going into too much details as usual. Maybe you will understand just by looking at what I'm doing here. But $1, that means the first argument that you pass with a command, and that will be one of these down. And we can also make one that's called star. And if that is passed, then we just exit. This means that if it's not left, right, up or down, if someone writes like i3 size mode hello, then it will just exit. It needs one of these words to work. And then we could make here a mode variable. Let's call it var mode equals top left. Right, there we have bottom right up. There we have top right, and down there we have bottom left. And there is some thought behind why the different directions have different modes like this, because as you might remember, we have H, J, K and L is what I use at least, and maybe have different keys, but this is common to have 4 keys in a row to represent the directions. The leftmost character here on the keyboard is H, which means direction left, L, rightmost direction L, right, and J looks like a down arrow, is down, K is up. And we could divide these into 2 groups. These are the leftmost and these are the rightmost keys. So these two, it's logical to have left and down to both be either top left and bottom left. And of course J, since that is downwards, that should be bottom. And the opposite here then, L should be right at least, and K, since it's the on the right half of the keys, should also be a right corner. And since K translates to up, that should be top right, and the normal right should be bottom right. That's at least logical for me and my stupid brain. Okay. Now we have these beautiful variables here. So instead of setting absolute mode here, we just pass in var mode. I don't think we need to reload the config, but let's do it anyways. I open up a floater. If I press mod control and left, we should go into top left mode, and we can see that down there. I escape it immediately. If we press mod control and down, we go into bottom left mode, and that's what we want here. And now if I press down, imagine I'm moving the bottom left corner now. You see this, I have had this in my head to make this this way to resize, but I just hadn't done it. But now when I have, it's like one of these things. Why this is like obvious. It's really good. Now you have full control. And yeah, let's continue. Right. Then it's select bottom right, and yeah, I have arrow keys still here. And this is basically it. But we also need to make variables for how we want to manipulate a tiled window. And in my opinion, in my opinion, let's call this var tile. Tile size. Tile size is good. This doesn't matter. The variables names, you can basically have anything. And left, that should be shrink width, because I'm inside a mode. That's what's going on here. As I told you, I'm not used to this mode stuff. Whoops. All right. I thought I make this video. I haven't really prepared it. I just knew what I wanted to do, and it can be cool to see this process a bit. So left, when it's a tile window, it should shrink the width, because that's also how my brain interprets it. Left is minus on a X scale, you know, and right is increasing. So left should be shrink width, and right, of course, should be grow width. And up, that is grow height, of course, because up is increasing the height. Oh, grow height. This is kind of important, because grow up doesn't always have to be true, you know. If the window you want to grow is on the top half of the split, like here, now I open this terminal. If we are here, we don't want this to grow up, we want just to grow the height, meaning grow down. So grow height is much more logical when you're dealing with the tile windows. Then and then we can put in the tile size variable here instead of that absolute value. Like that. I reload the config just in case. So now if I press down here, or mod control and down, it should shrink the height of this active ctern window, and it does. And if I press up, it grows, and if I press left, it should shrink the width of this window, and it does. And if I press right, it grows the width. And if I focus right, and if I grow the width here, it grows this and shrink the others. And if we would have a floating window and I press mod control, it enters the mode that I want. So this is I don't know if you get it, but it's really nice. Last thing I want to do here is to change these names to the variable, so I can use my direction variable keys. And I think I will do this, so I get a little smaller, and then I can just select okay, we do some dirt. There. Load the config. Oh, that. Size. Top left, left, right. Yeah. Okay. I'm really happy with this, and then you could of course, and I will do that with my script. I will probably publish this script in like soon. The size mode, i3 size mode here. Probably rename it and give it maybe one more option to set the size that you want to resize the windows, or maybe not. We'll see. But you got the basic, and I just wanted to show you this ID. And now you can have, we still have the same keys, but we have much more control over how to resize windows, and it's different if it's floating, if it's tiled. And this technique could be used to identify a floating window here. That can be useful for other things too. I don't really know anything now, but maybe you do. And then you just replace these commands here with something else that you want to do if a window is floating, and whatever. So that was a little bit of a scripting school, a little bit of a mode school, a little bit of a little bit. Thank you for watching. I hope I see you in the next video. I am Budrich. This is Let's Linux. Bye bye.